Hey, I'm Jake. I make RPG supplements and videos about Pathfinder 2, or Pfftoo. I love Pfftoo, and as a longtime player of D&D and other game systems, I want to share the things that I find along the way that are interesting to me, and hopefully share them in a way that makes them easy to understand and fun. Today, I'll do an overview of the basic abilities that a Kineticist gets, and how to use some of them, and some of their combination abilities that you can do by mixing elements. It's a really cool concept. Okay, this class, the Kineticist, is 25 pages long because it includes the Kineticist Impulses. Impulses are feats that work similarly to spells, except you can usually use them as many times per day as you want. Yeah, this class doesn't have spell slots, doesn't use focus points, it's just an all-day blaster and caster. So much fun. It has limited flexibility because you have to take each of your powers with a feat instead of just getting them automatically by leveling. This is very much a build your own Warlock kind of class. You start off with your Elemental Blast, and you can add abilities to your blast and extra powers by taking Impulse Essence feats, a lot like Invocations. This is less occult arcane-y than the 5e Warlock or 3-5 Warlock or Pathfinder 2 Imitation Warlock. And it's more natural in feel and theme than arcane, like a Bender from the Avatar series, as most of you probably expected. It also has similarities to a Psychic in Pfftoo in that you have certain powers that you can use all day long and certain powers that are once a day or once every however many minutes. Most of them, though, are just at will. The interesting thing about all of this, to me, is that while your elemental effects are subject to saving throws or defenses that someone might get against a spell, they're usually not actually spells. It's just your innate connection to the element. It's very interesting, the philosophy behind the class. It makes for an interesting feel, and I think it was a great idea that they built this class this way. It makes it feel different from all the other classes, like it's special. It's just who you are. First, let's cover what all Kineticists can do. Kineticists have a planar gateway in their body that links them to one particular elemental plane. Now in this book, Rage of Elements, we have elements clarified as air, earth, fire, metal, water, and wood. Just so you know, I mean, you probably know what most of the classical elements are, but metal, in this system at least, is mostly damage, protection, warfare, and crafting. And wood is mostly healing, growing plants, and launching splinters at your enemy, or conjures wood armor. I really like the feel of the wood element because it sort of lets you blend primal, which this class really feels like it is a primal class, with other archetypes that go really well with that, like a primal witch or a druid, or even some barbarians. There's also a barbarian new subclass thing in this book that I'm not going over today, but I'll go over soon. The elements that you can channel are referred to as your kinetic elements, hence the Kineticist. I really wish it were just called an elementalist, because Kineticist is not really intuitive. Like, kinetic means energy in general. I mean, it implies energy in general, but elementalist is really what this is specifically. I wish there weren't already an archetype called elementalist. And that also gets revised by Rage of Elements. This book is really cool. There's a lot of things it touches on, like an Eidolon that's an elemental. Even a metal Eidolon elemental. Elemental Eidolon. Now, your main subclass choice of Kineticist is whether you want 1 or 2 elements, or planar gates. Means the same thing. It's a synonym. And that's for starters. You can always change that later. Single gate choice, single gate subclass, gains an impulse junction and 2 first level impulse feats. An impulse junction is an element-based effect that automatically occurs at the same time you use an impulse ability. So it's like a side effect when you cast a spell, like a rider or booster. Like using either of the 2 impulses that every Kineticist gets at first level, Elemental Blast and base Kinesis, either of those could trigger your Elemental Junction. I'll explain those two abilities after the gates and the aura. But here are the impulse junctions you can choose from. Yeah, this is a big class. Air, before or after other effects of the impulse. Sorry, let me back up for a moment. I'm going to explain what each of these do by element. So if you are using an air element trait, kinetic impulse, you get, before or after the effects of the impulse, you can either stride up to half your speed or step. If you have a fly speed, you can fly up to half your fly speed instead. If it's earth, fragments of stone float around you, granting you a +1 circumstance bonus to your AC until the start of your next turn. So really nice for combat. Fire, increase the damage die size of fire damage dealt by the impulse by 1 step. That's just nice, just extra possible damage. And, you know, fire's been like the one standout element throughout so far. Not just this book, I mean previously in Pfftoo. Like if you choose an elemental bloodline sorcerer, everything's bludgeoning except fire. Fire just gets extra fire damage, and same thing with a kineticist. Fire just gets extra fire damage. It's fire. If it's a metal impulse, you can choose acid, electricity, or piercing, and until the start of your next turn, each time a creature touches you or damages you with an unarmed melee attack or non-reach melee weapon, it takes damage of the chosen type equal to half your level, minimum 1. That's really cool. That is, I don't know, like metal / earth would be a really fun combination for just like a melee tanky sort of defensive. You can get armor you can summon. Anyway, I'll get to that, sorry. Water impulse junction. After the impulse's other effects, you can move one creature targeted by the impulse or in its area 5 feet in any direction, or 10 feet if it's in a body of water. This can't move the creature into the air. Duh. But you know, you might have thought you could, because 5e shenanigans do that a lot. It's just... Anyway. You can choose only a creature that's willing to be moved, that failed its save against the impulse, or that you succeeded at an impulse attack roll against. Impulse attack rolls are basically just ranged spell attacks. Wood. You gain temporary hit points equal to your level that last until the start of your next turn. There's a lot of survivability with the Kineticist. It's cool. Dual gate. I keep saying cool. Dual gate instead of single gate. You gain 2 separate elements and 2 first level impulse feats, one with one element and one with the other. You don't get an impulse junction if you choose dual gate, which is fine, I think, because while it's nice that they have an extra effect without any extra time to cast, all the effects are really minor. Plus, if you have 2 elements, you're closer to getting to choose the weird special composite impulse feats. I'll go over some of those at the end. Elemental combos. Like pepperoni and pretzel? Was that a combo? There's pepperoni and buttery crust? It doesn't matter. The next ability we're going to talk about is the kinetic aura you get at first level. You get a lot of stuff at first level. The kinetic aura is created by the ability Channel Elements. It takes 1 action. A 10-foot emanation of pieces of your chosen element fly around you. At first, the aura doesn't do anything, but you have to have it active in order to use any of your impulses. And sometimes later on, depending on what impulse you take, it has an automatic effect when you summon it. As a part of summoning your aura, you can use a 1-action elemental blast or a 1-action stance impulse, which there are a few, if you have any. And we'll go over some of the impulses, like I said, at the end. Elemental blast is... So you have all these elemental pieces floating around you. You grab a chunk of element from your 10-foot aura and you smack someone with it, or you throw it. If it's melee, you add strength to the damage. If it's a 2-action blast instead of 1, you add your constitution modifier as a status bonus to damage. So you could end up adding both strength and constitution to melee attacks with your element blast. Each of the elemental blasts has a slightly different effect. There's so much flavor and customization in the Kineticist. They did a really good job of making this interesting. So if it's an air blast, it does 1d6 electricity or slashing and has a 60-foot range. If it's earth, it does 1d8 bludgeoning or piercing with a 30-foot range. Fire does 1d6 damage, range 60 feet. Metal does 1d8 piercing or slashing with a range of 30 feet. Water does 1d8 bludgeoning or cold, 30 feet. Wood does 1d8 bludgeoning or vitality, 30 feet. Vitality seems like it's the new positive energy, but it affects everything, it seems. The opposite seems to be void. So there are a couple of those in this class, but we haven't gotten a lot of detail about what exactly vitality and void are, or what their effects are, or how they link to other classes yet. This is the first book that has new remaster changes. So a little bit more detail about how the Elemental Blast works. If you get a critical success, the target takes double damage. A regular success, the target takes full damage. You can increase the effectiveness of it for every 4 levels that you have. So it's not like spell ranks, which is the new term for spell levels. It's the levels of the character. The damage die increases by 1 die. As of yet, there's only one way to increase the amount of damage your blast can do, and it can't be enhanced with hand wraps of mighty blows or have any weapon runes on it in any way. And the one thing that adds to the damage just adds flat damage starting with 1 point. The other first level impulse you get, aside from the Elemental Blast, is base Kinesis. I know you have the aura too, but it's not active, I guess, so it's not all that interesting. But it is technically another ability to get. So base Kinesis. This ability takes 2 actions. This impulse takes 2 actions. You choose one of your elements. There are 3 different things you can do with the element. It has to be within 30 feet, and negligible or light bulk. Your options are generate, which means you bring an ordinary non-magical piece of the chosen element from its elemental plane. The element can be used for any of its normal purposes. For example, air can be breathed by an air-breathing creature, and fire casts light and can ignite flammable substances. 2, move. Move an existing piece of the element up to 20 feet in any direction. If you bring it into your space, you can catch it in an open hand, which, how does that work with air? Whatever. You can sustain the impulse to keep moving the element if you want to. Third option, suppress. You can destroy an existing piece of element, such as snuffing out a flame or evaporating water from a cup. How does that work with air? Do you just create a vacuum? That's cool. This affects only natural forms of the element, not durable crafted goods like a stone statue, metal lock, or wooden door, so you can't cheese it as easily. For every 4 levels, the range increases by 15 feet, and the maximum bulk increases by 1, allowing bulk 1 at 5th level. This power, base Kinesis, is world-changing. There is no limit on how many times you can do this. Sure, it has to be light bulk until 5th level, but eventually you can still create or summon like a lake of water given time, or an entire forest of trees. The applications of this are near limitless. You can dig trenches, create air to breathe underwater. You can irrigate a desert. This one ability allows for an immense amount of creativity, and the out-of-combat applications could shape your character's story and the entire world. Obviously, it's my favorite ability. Okay, so all of this stuff you get at first level, plus 2 impulse feats. The impulse feats are what make your Kineticist unique from every other Kineticist. Like I said, I know it was already taken, but I just wish it were called an elementalist. It makes more sense. Anyway, there are 15 impulse feats, and there are 15 impulse feats for each element, and 15 combination element powers called Composite Impulses. Each composite impulse is made up of 2 different elements, and you can only choose any impulse if you have access to all the implements. If you have access to all the elements the impulse uses. I'm sorry, I'm still sick. I'm getting over it. I have a lot of cold medicine in my body. I'll now go over some of the composite impulse feats, but before I do, I want to tell you something that made understanding this class so much easier. I started building a character by reading it from the back of the book to the front. So you start with all the composite impulses. Because these have such strict requirements, taking one of these will be a major impact on any character build. Not only that, but because I might just absolutely fall in love with one of the composite impulses, I'll know which 2 elements I'll be focusing on right away. And the most important choice you get to make with the Kineticist is which powers you take. So after I'm done with the Composite Impulses, I go through, creating the character, I go through each of the Elemental Impulses, so the 15 of each type, and then I'll choose whichever speak to me and match the elements of the Composite Impulse I chose, if any. Then I choose the class feats, which will be easier to choose now that I know what major impact my character can make in game. Then I go to the basic class abilities, including your Blast and Aura. Again, pretty easy to choose at this point because of all the research I did, or you'll do. Then finish with the skills, ability scores, skill feats, and then ancestries. It just flows much better for me because I get to make the most important and defining choices first. Then the other choices are all easier to make after that. Okay, so anyway, a few Composite Impulses. 4th level. They only go up to 6th level. And they only start at 4th level. Living Bonfire. 2 actions, Fire and Wood Composite Impulse. Summon a 10-foot square bonfire within 30 feet. It burns for 10 hours. If you make a ranged wood elemental blast attack, you can instead have a burning log fly out from the bonfire to hit your enemy, dealing extra 1d6 fire damage. But you can constantly create this bonfire every 10 hours. We have a bonfire. Why? Because bonfire. Why wouldn't you? Also at 4th level, Whirling Grindstone. This takes 2 actions. It's Earth and Metal Composite Impulse. Within 30 feet, you summon a Flint Grindstone that deals slashing and fire damage to an adjacent creature. You roll to hit. If you succeed, they take 2d6 slashing and 1d6 fire damage. You can sustain this for up to a minute. And then you can just use it again. These guys are so great for just infinite blasting or casting. So many builds are going to be fun with this. The archetype for the Kineticist is great too, because no matter what you are, you can just tack on, okay, and Elemental Blast. Paladin with Earth Blast. Anyway. You can move the Grindstone up to 20 feet the first time you sustain it in a turn. A creature within reach of the Grindstone can interact to sharpen a metal weapon, giving it a +2 to damage on the next attack. Technically, that includes guns. It's a metal weapon. And also, enemies can use it. It just as a creature. Interesting hijinks. 6th level Composite Impulse. I'm not going over all of them because there's a whole lot, and there'll be some surprises and cool stuff for you to see in the book when you get it. The description in the bottom of the video is going to have a link to get this book because it's fun and awesome. Anyway, 6th level Impulse, Molten Wire, 2 actions, Fire and Metal Composite Impulse. You wrap a target in molten iron wire if they're within 15 feet. If you succeed on a hit, they take 2d6 slashing damage and they're wrapped for 1 minute. The creature is clumsy 1 and takes 2d4 fire damage at the start of every turn, unless it saves on a basic reflex save. It's powers like this that you can base an entire character build on. Can you picture this on a bounty hunter? Freaking awesome! 6th level. Again, another impulse. Rising Hurricane. 3 actions, Air Water Composite Impulse. All creatures in a 30-foot diameter take 2d6 bludgeoning damage unless they succeed at a Fortitude save. You can lift any creature that fails its save to any height you choose within the area of 40 feet high. Then you move it up to 5 feet in any direction, then drop it, and it takes fall damage. And you can use this at will. This is a little unbalanced, and I hope that some of the other powers get improved, or this gets a little nerfed, because it's just kind of stupid. It's great, though. Why wouldn't you choose this? Next is a 6th level power called Steam Knight. Knight. It's 1 action, Fire Water Composite Impulse. You gain a 10-foot status bonus to speed. And when you leap, you can jump up to your speed, and you can double jump. You don't immediately fall at the end of a jump, provided you leap again with your next action. So you just like, it's a video game. It's an RPG realization, or ttrpg realization of video game mechanics. You just jump off of your Steam, I guess. It's sort of like you have an exhaust of steam jets, I think. So you're like pushing steam down so you fly higher. That's the way I make sense of it anyway. If you jump over a creature, but are within 10 feet of that creature at some point during the jump, they take 2d6 fire damage with a basic reflex save. As a free action every turn, you can deal 2d6 fire damage to all creatures in your aura, which is normally 10 feet, with a basic reflex save. If they fail, they're also pushed 5 feet. Doesn't say what direction, I assume just directly away from you. These powers are really powerful and creative, and they let you play a completely different style depending on which impulses you take. I like that the highest level for Composite Impulses is level 6 also, so you get to the theme of your character early on in levels. Especially if you base your personality around being a kineticist. I want to say thank you for putting up with me while I've had COVID. I appreciate your patience and understanding, and I mean that from the heart of my bottom. Thank you to GM Rufus specifically, but also all of my great patrons. I am forever in your debt for helping me make this channel work. If you're excited about the Kineticist or anything else in Rage of Elements, give this a thumbs up. Or, hey, leave a comment. Share your love of this system in RPGs. This is part 1 of Rage of Elements coverage. I'm putting out the next video on it soon. There's an elemental eidolon. I'm so excited about this book. I'm just like flipping through it. Well, digitally flipping through. I have PDF. Well, the physical book isn't out yet. Anyway, and if you want to get this book, Rage of Elements, remember the link, the affiliate link is in the description. I get a little kickback. Thank you. But it's also just convenient for you to click there and get the book. PDF or whatever. I like physical copies because, I don't know, I guess because that's how I started learning RPGs. Like, I had a stack of books and it made me feel good taking books to all my games. It is nice to have it on your phone though. Anyway, if you like this video, also check out the video on the Geomancer archetype, which fits really well with the theme of Kineticist. And remember, a different version of you exists in the minds of everyone who knows you. So if you want people to like you for you, it won't be the same you know you to be. Until next time, bye-bye.